I'm Chris Fernari, the editor of Brewbound.com, and we're at the 2018 Craft Brewers Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. One of the top questions that I get asked are, what trends are you paying attention to? I don't have all the answers, but some folks that I talked to here this week do. So I asked them for their one or two trends that they're keeping a close watch on in 2018. Let's hear what they had to say.
I think that there's definitely a trend towards more sessionable beers, and a lot of breweries are getting into that territory, looking at more sessionable beers. A lot of breweries are looking at Pilsners or lagering generally, and understanding how to make lagers profitable, I think, is going to be a little bit of a challenge for our brewers who are used to turning around ales a lot faster. But as far as other trends, I don't know. I like to see the types of people that are drinking craft beer expand. I think that we're seeing more women, we're seeing more people of color, we're seeing more minorities. There's a lot of investment in expanding the craft beer marketplace, and I'm excited to see how far we can go down that path.
You know, lager is picking up a little bit of momentum and some steam, so hopefully lager becomes something really cool, and you know, maybe we can just go back to drinking beers that taste like beer.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's interesting. You go through all these years of creating like more and more esoteric stunt type beers, and now I think a lot of people are sort of looking at like, what's a great lager, or, you know, nice crisp Pilsner, where does that play in your portfolio? So I think this idea of coming back around to sort of simplicity is really interesting in the industry right now.
I think there is sort of a trend back to delicious, drinkable beer styles. You know, for a long time there was a huge trend towards, you know, ultimately hoppy, more assaultive styles of beers, things that were fringes, and more, even my friends who are craft brewers, you know, you find them at the end of the night and we're all drinking sessionable beers. And so I think that if you're not paying attention to the 805s of the world, you know, Bell's products, you know, things that are out there that are absolutely delicious and drinkable, you're not really seeing what's happening in our industry, because if you're going to sell a lot of beer, you want something that people can drink a lot of.
I think people are getting back to, and I think we started seeing it last year, but you know, lighter lagers, Pilsners, obviously the sessionable IPA is still big for some people. Hazy IPAs is really on fire right now, but I think I think and I hope that there is a kind of a return back to easy drinking, everyday beers that you can drink many of.
You know, it's almost like the polar opposites. One is obviously the yeast-forward, unfiltered, sort of hop-forward, juice-forward beers. I'm just sort of fascinated with how customers are really into those. You know, I know how brewers are into them. We're all just sort of, from a brewer's standpoint, it's sort of like geeking out, but it's sort of interesting to see how customers are responding to them. So that's of interest. And on the other end, you know, the making beers that fall to that 4 to 5% level that are approachable to drinkers who are now ready to drink craft beer and are intrigued by it. So it's sort of like both ends of the scale at the moment are fascinating for us.
First one would be legalization of weed, and seeing as that keeps spreading, what does that do to the market, and how does this continued race towards a, you know, lighter craft beer product continue to impact us?
We've played with some crickets and beer, grasshoppers and beer, alternative proteins. We're playing with cannabis, sake, kombucha. What I see really is ancillary aspects of flavor coming into beer and just finding a way to amplify beer in the most meaningful way possible. And I think that's through flavor and quality. So if it's cocktails, if it's zero alcohol drinks or mocktails, and it starts going towards NA or maybe low alcohol, I think that might be a meaningful direction that happens too. I really hope that it goes that direction. I'm going to continue to focus on lagers and Pilsners. For me, that's the quintessential style, and I want to see everyone return to it, and I think that there's a resurgence, but I think it's maybe 2 or 3 years out.
Biggest trend for me in the cider category is what's going on with this rosé thing. I think we've seen, you know, growth back in cider in the last 4 to 12 weeks in the syndicated data, and it's vigorous, and we're seeing a lot of competition, not just in cider, but beer, wine, spirits. Everybody's jumping on rosé, and will it be a trend or a fad?
My biggest trend that I'm paying attention to is just the continued fragmentation. I just continue to be amazed at how much the lines are getting blurred in alcohol beverages. We see lots of products that aren't necessarily beer, they're not necessarily wine, they're not necessarily spirits. We see spirits coming out with lower alcohol, offerings that start to match beer in terms of equalization. And I mean, it's really incredible just how, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we had very well-defined beer, wine, and spirits categories. And then every year it seems those lines get more and more blurred. So it's more difficult for beer to stand forth in the marketplace as a true beer anymore, with so much fragmentation and differentiation in the way consumers view our category.